And I think that about covers everything. Pillock, anything else you want to talk about before we finish up this meeting?
Well, yeah, I was just putting some finishing touches on this week's video when somebody pinged me with this. Give me a second. Yeah, might want to take a look at this, boss.
Oh, fantastic. This always happens.
Right, what's the plan then?
I don't know. This feels more like Earthbound Immortal support. It doesn't really line up with Servants. They've only got one level 10 monster, and it's kind of their boss. So, I don't know. I think I'll leave it for next year's release roundup.
You know the audience isn't gonna like that, pal. Remember what happened when you implied that Reichardt was an Earth monster?
Ugh, don't remind me. I'll just, make an intro about it, and everyone will have a good chuckle about it.
If you insist. Just one more thing, right?
Yeah, what's up?
I just got a memo from Despot 5 about an hour or two ago. Something about requesting an ETA on the next Nova Lore video or
God damn! Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. We're back from MomoCon and I'm ready to get back into the swing of things. And what better way to do so than by harnessing a little bit of that Arc V energy. But we aren't talking about pendulums today. Instead, we're focusing on the latest Animation Chronicle set. For those not in the know, Animation Chronicles and its collection pack predecessor have been importing cards that were exclusive to the anime and manga for years now. And we just recently got word that a pretty spicy theme is dropping soon. Piloted by the nefarious dueling destroyers Sergei Volkov, the Earthbound servants and prisoners are the Arc V counterparts to the infamous Earthbound immortals that made up the Darksigners roster in the original 5D's anime. But instead of wanting to plunge the world into eternal darkness, Sergei just wants to beat the ever-loving daylights out of anyone that crosses his path, which I guess is technically better, though the people he turns into a thin asphalt veneer might not see it that way. Now, those of you who are up to date on the channel might know that I've already covered Earthbound Immortals, and I usually wait to cover updates to themes at the start of the following year. But since the deck has its own distinct playstyle, as well as a ridiculous way of intertwining Fusion and Synchro monsters, I think it's best we cover them sooner rather than later. So get ready to cover this new lineup of cards, see how they best serve your win condition, then find some support cards that will harmonize with our strategy. It's time to break all the rules with Earthbound Servants. Today's episode is brought to you by my lovely patrons and the fine people over at Dragon Shield. If you want to protect your cards with the strongest scales on the market that even come with their own lore while supporting the channel, use my affiliate link in the description. So what's the deal with Earthbound Servants and Prisoners? Well, they're a series of Dark Fiend monsters who use their main deck monsters to facilitate the summon of powerful Fusion and Synchro monsters. And sometimes, you do both at the same time. And if you don't know what I mean, trust me, it's worth the wait. Despite the name, we don't really have a lot of synergy with the Immortals part of the Earthbound umbrella. All the established cards are pretty particular about working with Earthbound Immortals, and our newer cards either just ignore them, or very rarely have the conditions to include our giant field spell reliant monstrosities. Heck, while Servants do have a field spell, they aren't exactly tied to it like the Immortals are. I'm starting to wonder why they even connected these two themes in the first place. Alright, enough of my blabbering, let's get on to those monsters, starting with Earthbound Prisoner Groundkeeper, a level 1 tuner monster with 300 attack and defense, and if this card is normal or special summoned, you can special summon a level 5 or lower Earthbound monster from your deck or grave, except a copy of this card. But you're locked out of extra deck special summoning for the rest of the turn, except for Fusion and Synchro monsters. And while on the field, Earthbound monsters you control can't be destroyed by battle or card effect while a card is in the field zone. So yeah, unfortunately that level cap means you can't just pull your Earthbound Immortals right out of the deck, but will help with our other support monsters, as it is a 1-card extra deck summon. Its protection effect is nice too. Now field spells give us some protection instead of being the foundation the entire theme is built on. In fact, you could say it keeps MST from being a win con against us. Earthbound Prisoner Line Walker is a level 3 tuner monster with 800 attack and 1100 defense, and if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add an Earthbound Prison or Harmonic Synchro Fusion from your deck or grave to your hand. If you control a level 6 or higher Earthbound monster, you can banish this card from your grave, then target an opponent's effect monster special summon from the extra deck. Shuffle it into the deck, then your opponent can special summon a monster with that same name from their extra deck. Wow, that is a weird slurry of words, and probably doesn't mean much right now, but trust me, there's a lot going on here. Earthbound Prison and Harmonic Synchro Fusion are both really good cards for us to be searching, and because it triggers off of normal or special summon, you can have Groundkeeper fetch this for a nifty +2 in total. The Grave effect is also kinda silly, and in a vacuum is only really removal against cards that have some kind of special restriction that keeps them from just being special summoned out of the extra deck. But we've got another monster that does something very funny when this effect is used. Suffice it to say, this card is really walking the line of playability here. Earthbound Prisoner Stone Sweeper is a level 5 monster with 1600 attack and defense, and if a card is in a field zone, you can special summon this card from your hand, and you can only special summon this card once per turn this way. You could also discard this card to add a level 3 or lower Fiend Tuner monster from your deck to your hand, but incites the Fusion and Synchro summoning lock from your extra deck for the rest of the turn. Now this is meant to get us Line Walker and Groundkeeper, but because the search conditions are so broad, we can actually get a ton of different monsters. Like, this covers basically all the resonators I can think of, making Stone Sweeper akin to Red Dragon Archfiend support. But it also randomly gets Infernoid Decatron, a number of Infernity and Fabled cards, as well as a few DDs. And with the exception of that last theme's Xyz monsters, that restriction doesn't do anything against those decks. And if you already have what you need and a field spell is active on the field, you can instead just summon this as a free piece of level 5 material. Keep an eye out because I predict we'll be seeing a lot of this card in decks moving forward, because as far as generic support goes, this has the potential to stone sweep the competition. Alright, that's all of our main deck monsters, now it's time for the extra deck. And this time around, we'll be starting with the Synchros. First up is Earthbound Servant Geo Gremlin, a level 6 monster with 2000 attack and 1000 defense, requiring a Dark Tuner and any number of non-tuners as material. During the main phase, as a quick effect, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, and your opponent chooses one of these effects for you to apply. Either destroy that monster, or you gain life points equal to that monster's attack. And during the battle phase, as a quick effect, you can fusion summon an Earthbound Fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion material mentioned on it from your hand, field, and or grave. You can pretty easily make this with Stone Sweeper and Groundkeeper, and while this is mostly a gateway monster to get into our big boss, its main phase effect isn't nothing. Most of the time, your opponent is incentivized to give you the life points instead of popping the monster, but even then it gives you a bit of a cushion against offensive pushes. And if you're getting close on time, the choice might not be that obvious. And because the fusion effect doesn't have any restrictions on it, you can swing in with all your monsters and then fuse, helping with your offensive pushes. Truly, this card is possessed of massive gremlin energy, and I'm all here for it. Earthbound Servant Geo Griffin is a level 8 monster with 2500 attack and 1500 defense, also requiring a Dark Tuner and one or more non-tuner monsters as material. As a quick effect, you can special summon an Earthbound monster from your grave and defense position except a copy of this card, but this does put you under that Fusion Synchro extra deck summon lock. And if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can destroy a card on the field, then burn your opponent for 300 damage times the number of Earthbound monsters with different names that you control or that are in your grave. Now this is one of the cards that actually works with our Earthbound Immortals. Send them to the grave, then have Geo Griffin revive them. You could bring out Chaku Chalua to do some free burn damage, get either of your Line Walkers into play, or get Azlapiscu to set up some big damage. Heck, Griffin's Grave effect can destroy any card on the field, so you can even blast your own Hummingbird to get the ball rolling while tacking on a little extra burn. Just put Stone Sweeper and Prisoner Line Walker together and you'll have one of the best pieces of support this deck could ask for. It may seem too good to be true, but this card is certainly no Grifton. Alright, that does it for our Synchros, now it's time for those fusions. Earthbound Servant Geo Kraken is a level 8 monster with 2800 attack and 1200 defense, requiring 2 Earthbound monsters as material. If this card is special summoned, you can add a field spell from your deck or grave to your hand, a very dangerous line of text. If a monster is special summoned from your opponent's extra deck, you can destroy as many monsters your opponent controls as possible that were special summoned this turn, and if you do, inflict 800 damage to your opponent for each monster destroyed by this effect. Thankfully, that effect is a hard once per turn, so it's no floodgate, but it's also not mandatory, so you can wait for just the right moment to unleash this reactive board breaker to really mess with your opponent. But you can also force the issue with Prisoner Line Walker's Grave effect. This is why it lets your opponent get their monster back, by the way. If they do, they'll have to wave goodbye to all the monsters that they've set up that turn. And because it comes with its own terraforming effect that can recycle from the grave, you can now play a number of utility field spells that you can cycle through, because this effect triggers on special summon, meaning you can revive this with Griffin and do it all over again. It's funny because at time of recording, they just banned terraforming in Master Duel, so seeing this effect on another card is really cracking me up. Earthbound Servant Geo Gratia is a level 10 monster with 3000 attack and 1800 defense, requiring an Earthbound Fusion monster and an Earthbound Synchro monster as material. It must be fusion summoned, and at the start of the damage step, if this card battles a monster, change that monster's attack and defense to 0. If any number of your opponent's monsters are destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls, and if this face-up card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can special summon an Earthbound monster from your deck or extra deck. Now this is a boss if I've ever seen one. So this is more often than not going to be summoned via Gremlin's fusion effect, with itself and Kraken being the prime material. It can float into just about any Earthbound, not this one because of that fusion summoning restriction, but it does include the Immortal, so that's fun. It can also beat just about anything in combat that can be affected by card effects, and when even a single one of your opponent's monsters are destroyed by anything, not just Gratia, they end up losing everything. And on top of that, it easily has the sickest design of anything the archetype has ever made. Those big goat horns means we are fusion summoning for Baphomet, and that is what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is all about. Alright, that's all of our monsters. Now it's time for those spells, and there's one in particular I have been salivating over since it was revealed. Harmonic Synchro Fusion is a normal spell card that sends 2 face-up monsters you control to the grave, 1 tuner and 1 non-tuner. You would then special summon a fusion and a synchro monster from your extra deck that can be fusion and synchro summoned using only those 2 monsters in the grave as material. But this also puts you under the fusion synchro lock that we've talked about before. Though this one is much more punishing as it checks the whole turn, not just the rest of the turn. But there aren't any other restrictions or hoops to jump through, so this spell gets you any applicable fusion and synchro monster that you could make in any theme, as long as the materials are all above board. In Archetype, the idea is to use Stone Sweeper to get the rest of your main deck monsters, search this with Line Walker if you need to, then use it to get both Kraken and Gremlin on board using 2 of those monsters. Then you can make Gratia at any battle phase past that point, but there are so many other things you can do with this. So many that I couldn't possibly make a comprehensive list right now, but here are some things off the top of my head. Branded can use this with Cartesia and any of the level 8 fusions to make Grand Gwynol and Lulu Lilith. You can use any of the Ice Jade level 7 tuners and base Adrian to make Jymir and Garura. And Shadal Falcon and almost any other monster can make a variety of Shadal fusions, and whatever generic synchro just lines up. The possibilities here are truly endless, and I fully expect some funky combo lines to emerge once this hits the scene, and I cannot wait for all the shenanigans that are about to ensue. But now that we're done here, can we get those swirly polymerization monsters out of there? I don't think it's good for them to be in the synchro beam for that long. Lastly, we have Earthbound Prison, a field spell card, and when activated, you target an effect monster your opponent controls, and this card gains this effect. While this card is in the field zone, negate that effect monster's effects. Neat! Also, during your main phase, you can normal summon an Earthbound monster in addition to your normal summon or set. And if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect and you have an Earthbound monster on your field and or your grave, have your opponent's life points, and if you do, negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent currently controls until the end of this turn. Wow, that has got to be the saltiest field spell I've ever seen. The life point thing was pretty funny, but being a board-wide negate for the turn means you have to be very careful about how you remove this. Or, you know, just run Cosmic Cyclone, that handles it pretty well too. But the fact that it also just locks down a monster is pretty great, especially because it's searchable with Prison Line Walker, and can be recycled with Kraken. The extra normal summon effect is also nice for helping get our new monsters onto the board in case we don't have Stone Sweeper for help, and it also helps our Immortals by letting us use any leftover monsters as tribute fodder to get them into rotation. Honestly, this card slays. It's almost like the hand from the Called by the Grave series got a massive upgrade. Alright, so we've learned all the cards, but how do we actually use them? Well, I'll show you how to get Geo Gratia into rotation off of just 2 cards. Groundkeeper, which we have 6 copies of thanks to Stone Sweeper, and Harmonic Synchro Fusion. Just normal summon Groundkeeper and use its effect to summon a Stone Sweeper. Then play that Harmonic Synchro Fusion, sending both away to summon Geo Kraken, which you can do because both are Earthbound monsters, and Geo Gremlin, since their levels equal 6. From here, you can use Kraken to get any field spell, including our new Prison, and Gremlin can either deal with a monster or gain you some life points. Then, once you hit the battle phase, you can just quick fuse into Grasha as needed. But what if we want to go one step beyond? For a little extra protection, we're gonna need Sweeper, Keeper, and either any field spell or Harmonic Synchro Fusion. We're gonna lead with Keeper, getting us Prison Line Walker, which will then get us Prison or HFS, whichever we don't have. Then we'll play the field spell, special summon Sweeper out of our hand, then use Harmonic to summon Kraken and Griffin. This doesn't get us into Grasha immediately, but now we have two fairly large monsters on board, battle and destruction protection thanks to Keeper, and Griffin can recycle Prison Line Walker every turn for a free search. And bonus points if you're playing a more Immortals focused version of the deck, because now we have a way to keep reviving them over and over again. Alright, so that's all the new Earthbound cards, but what do we do with them? Well, we're all about the beatdown. We've got a bunch of large-sized monsters that can help us go for game, while giving us a variety of tools that we can use to either shore up our own game plan, or put a hamper on our opponents. Now we just need to find some enablers to resolve these as soon as possible, as well as support that keeps our opponent on the back foot. So what can we play to help them out? First off, I'm pretty sure you can strike Earthbound Spirit from any list of tech picks. Sure, having a free level 4 you could unexpected die onto the field would be nice, but it's not supposed to be an Earthbound monster, so expect some name changes to be applied once this comes out in the TCG. The new Gazelle, King of Mythical Claws, is a very funny piece of support for us because it can search any level 5 fiend from our deck to our hand when normal or special summoned, which means you gain access to Stone Sweeper on that summon. And because those new Mythical Beast cards focus on fusion summoning, you aren't exactly getting in their way. Because we can make level 6 synchros, Muddy Mud Dragon is on the table, and that opens up a whole slew of silly possibilities. Invoked Kaliga can be made pretty easily with any dark. Bigger than me! Lubellion the Searing Dragon is on the table, which can then shuffle itself and the Mud Dragon into the extra deck for Mirror Jade. And probably the most bonkers of them all, Grapha, Dragon Overlord of Dark World, adding a bit of pseudo-negation to your board. But what would the synchro be in this scenario? Well, all three of the mentioned fusions have a dark monster as the other material, and it just so happens that Prisoner Line Walker fits the bill. So now you can take a level 3 tuner and a level 6 Dark Dragon Synchro monster and make Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss for even more negation. Vision Resonator and Assault Synchron both make for great includes here, as you can summon them from your hand at various points during your combo. Then, once you've made Gremlin and gotten all the value out of it that you want, you can sync it with either of those tuners to make Excel Synchro Stardust Dragon and climb up into Barone. As for a silly tech pick, Black Garden. I mean, we can run Azlapiscu, and we can recycle it with Griffin. This just gives us another option to help with dealing a lot, if not lethal damage, on a whim. Heck, you could even pop your own Piscu with Barone if you're able to make it to force that issue. Isn't Yu-Gi-Oh so much fun? And that's all I have to say about Earthbound Servants. I'm not quite sold that this deck in a pure version is going to make many waves. After all, a deck can have extraordinary boss monsters, but without the infrastructure to match, it's not going anywhere. But with Stone Sweeper potentially breathing new life into older themes and Harmonic Synchro Fusion pulling off some wild combos, I'd say that the future is looking pretty bright for these shadowy creatures. Now where the heck is Gremlina? But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Are Earthbound Servants ready to serve up a win, or are they still trapped in a prison made of legacy support? And which one is your favorite? I've already gone on record as a Grasha stan, but I'd also kill for Gremlin. Let me know in the comments, and while you're down there, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with somebody you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode was brought to you in part by Dragon Shield. When you want to protect your cards with the power of dragon scales, get some sweet lore for them, and support the channel, check out my link in the description to get started. Today's episode was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander Green Knight, Nebula Navigator's 3rd Dynasty, Ada Basilisk, Adam Zajdel, Andrew Newman, A Random Pup, Avi Chali, Kane Senpai, Chibi Gohan, Danny Bound, Divine Dragon Felgrand 4123, Eric, Aaron the World Breaker, Frankie, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh, Gloomba 331, Great Big Pillock, Hairbear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Howling Zangetsu, Iskander 711, John, Jordan, Julius Sneezer, Mana Charge, Marluxia's a Girl, Nathan Vig, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, RJ the Jank Monarch, Sammy Haim, Sir Knight JCB, Skybuster Leo, Sophie, apparently, the Fresh Prince of Con Air, the Wizard Moose and Xander Wolfensberger, Cosmic Crusaders Almento 5010, Ariel Kersey, Bear Sharktopus Studios, Beluga Masta, Blue Gem, Chazghost, Chris Kessler, Drachenwald, Emony, Eva Padilla, Herbal D, In the House Like Carpet, Inblink, Gesture Designs, Kale the Dragon, Carp, Kevon Public, King Scarlet Yu-Gi-Oh!, Lord Whoop-De-Doo, Manga Pages, Marion James E. Picata, Matt Simmons, Mega Combi, Michael Shimabukuro, Nadia McCarthy, Nitromo, Ruxith Sarani, Shizuki Nijimura, Star-Lord 777, Stephen Williamson, the Legendary Raven, Tucker Ordorn, and Zal Dreka, as well as the lovely Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to be a part of these credits, get my videos early, join in on the monthly custom card review stream, and, of course, support the channel, please consider checking out the link to my Patreon in the description or becoming a YouTube member. And if you want to get caught up on what the base Earthbound Immortals do, check out this video where I help you do just that. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Moby. Okay, I don't know what it is, but like I have like my headphones on the table, right? And Moby every once in a while will come up and he'll start licking the earbuds, which is weird because normally he eats the cables, right? But he goes for the earbuds specifically. I think, I'm moving him real quick. I think he likes the earwax in the earphone, and that disturbs me in ways I can't possibly put into words. Anyway.